What they found in the walls left everyone frozen. A young woman goes missing. Weeks turn into months. No leads. No answers. Just silence. Then, during a simple home renovation, workers make a chilling discovery inside the walls. It wasn't just evidence. It was her. But what happened next shocked everyone. This case unfolds in a quiet, working-class neighborhood on the edge of Chicago. The kind of place where everyone knows each other. Where front porches are gathering spots, and secrets rarely stay hidden for long. Our victim was Emily Carter, 26 years old. A nurse. Bright, compassionate, and adored by patients and neighbors alike. She had a smile that lit up the hospital hallways, but a shadow was growing in her personal life. Emily had been living with her boyfriend, Jason Miller, a construction worker. Their relationship was complicated, passionate, but marked by loud arguments that carried through the thin apartment walls. And then one night, Emily simply vanished. Friends say she never showed up for her shift at the hospital. Family called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Police searched. Flyers went up. Her face flooded social media. But the trail grew cold. Until 2 years later, when a new couple bought the very house Emily once lived in. And during renovations they tore down a wall. We post daily, subscribe so you never miss a case. Emily Carter's life looked picture perfect from the outside. At just 26, she had carved out a reputation as one of the most dedicated young nurses at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago. Colleagues admired her energy. Patients adored her warmth. Children especially lit up when she entered their rooms, always with a soft voice and a gentle smile. Her family often joked that she was born to heal, that compassion flowed through her veins more than blood. But behind that kindness, Emily's world was far from peaceful. She lived with her longtime boyfriend, Jason Miller, a construction worker known around the neighborhood for his easy jokes and hardworking demeanor. To strangers, Jason looked like the kind of man anyone would be proud to have by their side. To those closer to Emily, however, he was something else entirely. Friends whispered that she seemed more guarded since moving in with him, her laughter less frequent, her energy dimmed. Neighbors recalled the sound of arguments echoing through the thin walls of their small home. Raised voices, the crash of objects, then silence. Emily, when confronted about it, would smile uneasily and say, "It's just stress, nothing serious." But her eyes always told a different story. One evening over coffee, she confided in a close friend. She admitted she was thinking of leaving Jason. The relationship had become suffocating, unpredictable, and frightening. "I want to start over," she said softly, stirring her cup but never drinking. "Just me, my job, and peace." Her friend urged her not to wait, to pack her bags and go. But Emily hesitated. Jason's temper was something she feared more than she let on. Days later, Emily vanished. The last confirmed sighting was at her shift the night before. She left work, tired but smiling, and promised a coworker she'd bring homemade muffins the next day. She never arrived. Her car was still parked in the driveway. Her purse remained on the kitchen counter. The front door was locked from the inside. Police immediately questioned Jason. His story was simple. They had argued, she stormed out and never came back. He claimed she might have left town, maybe even run off with someone else. But Emily's family knew better. She wasn't the type to disappear, not without calling her mother, not without checking in on her patients. Something felt terribly wrong. Detectives searched the home but found nothing suspicious. No forced entry. No visible struggle. Jason remained a person of interest, but without evidence, they could do little more than keep him on their radar. Still, unsettling details emerged. A neighbor swore he saw Jason hauling rolls of plastic sheeting into the house late at night. Another noticed a strange chemical smell drifting from the basement in the weeks after Emily disappeared. Police documented the accounts but couldn't connect them to anything solid. Her case slowly faded from headlines. Leads dried up. Hope dwindled. Yet her family refused to give up. And 2 years later, when a new couple began tearing down the old walls of that same house, the truth finally began to reveal itself. The hammer struck the plaster and dust filled the air. At first, the young couple thought they had found old insulation or maybe forgotten wiring. But as chunks of drywall crumbled, something else appeared. A dark, heavy smell spread through the room. Then came the unmistakable site fabric, decayed and yellowed with time, wrapped around something that looked human. They froze. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, trembling, the husband whispered, "Call the police. Now." Detectives arrived within the hour, sealing off the property with bright yellow tape. Neighbors poured into the street, watching in disbelief as investigators carried out evidence bags under the cold, gray sky. Inside the wall was the skeletal remains of a woman, partially wrapped in plastic sheeting. Alongside the remains lay strands of long hair, fragments of clothing, and a delicate silver bracelet still clinging to the bone of her wrist. The bracelet was engraved with a single word, Emily. The discovery shattered the silence of the neighborhood. For Emily's family, the news was devastating but not unexpected. Her mother collapsed upon hearing the confirmation. Her father clenched his fists, whispering, "I knew she never left us. I knew." Police wasted no time reopening the investigation. Jason Miller, the boyfriend who had claimed Emily simply walked out, was suddenly back in the spotlight. He appeared visibly shaken when detectives arrived at his new apartment. He insisted he had no idea what they were talking about, swearing he'd thought Emily had left him for good. But investigators were skeptical. Neighbors stepped forward again, this time with louder voices. One remembered a night of loud banging and drilling inside the house shortly after Emily vanished. Another recalled Jason working late in the basement with power tools, though no one ever saw what he was building. The timeline began to crack open. Emily disappears after a heated argument. Jason tells police she stormed out. But there was no record of her leaving, no taxi, no bus, no sightings. Her car sat untouched. Now, her body had been discovered inside the very walls of the house they once shared. It was the kind of revelation that left detectives chilled. To hide someone in the very place they lived together spoke of control, cruelty, and an unthinkable lack of remorse. In the days that followed, news crews swarmed the neighborhood. Headlines screamed, "Missing nurse found in boyfriend's wall." Reporters pieced together the story, painting Jason as a monster in plain sight. But there were still questions. The autopsy revealed broken ribs, consistent with blunt force trauma. It suggested Emily had fought back. There were also traces of a sedative in her system. Investigators believed Jason may have drugged her before the fatal attack. Yet Jason denied everything. He told police he was innocent, that someone else must have hidden her there to frame him. But then, detectives uncovered a piece of evidence so damning, it threatened to tear apart his entire defense. Detectives knew they had to move quickly. With Emily's remains recovered, the case shifted from a missing person to homicide. Every detail mattered now. The first break came from inside the house. Forensic teams combed through the walls, collecting fibers, dust, and chemical traces. On the plastic that wrapped Emily's body, they found fragments of duct tape and residue of a cleaning solution often used in construction. Investigators matched the brand to one Jason Miller frequently purchased through his job sites. Still, suspicion alone wasn't enough. Detectives dug into Jason's past, searching for patterns of violence. They uncovered reports of minor altercations, arguments in bars, heated fights with co-worker, but none had escalated to formal charges. Yet the stories painted a picture of a man with a short fuse and a dangerous temper. Police brought Jason in for questioning. He sat across the table, jaw tight, arms folded. His story never wavered. Emily left after an argument and he never saw her again. He insisted he had no knowledge of her body being in the walls. But investigators pressed harder. They asked how the bracelet with her name, a gift he himself had bought her, could have ended up with the remains. Jason had no answer. Meanwhile, the community came alive with rumors. Some swore they'd always known Jason was guilty. Others wondered if there could be more to the story. Could someone else have taken advantage of Emily's disappearance and hidden her body in the house later? Detectives entertained the theory, but the evidence kept circling back to Jason. A search warrant on his belongings produced another breakthrough. In a storage locker rented under his name, officers discovered leftover rolls of plastic sheeting, the exact same type used to conceal Emily's body. Alongside them was a half-empty container of the same cleaning chemical found on the duct tape. But then, another twist surfaced. Forensic testing revealed a second set of fingerprints on the plastic, not Emily's, not Jason's. This raised the chilling question: had someone helped him? Or had someone else been involved altogether? Detectives revisited the timeline. On the night Emily vanished, neighbors heard drilling, hammering, and strange noises. Jason claimed he'd been working a late construction project across town. At first, his alibi seemed weak. But when investigators checked, a co-worker confirmed Jason had been on site that evening for at least part of the night. This complicated everything. If Jason was away, who was making noise inside the house? And how did Emily's body end up sealed behind a wall? For weeks, investigators chased this lead, considering whether an accomplice might exist. They interviewed Jason's friends, co-workers, even former girlfriends. One ex revealed Jason had once threatened her during an argument, saying, "If you leave me, no one will ever find you." It sent chills through detectives, reinforcing the belief that Emily's death was no accident. Still, the mystery of the extra fingerprints lingered. The forensic team raced to match them, running them against every database available. Days turned into weeks. And then, the results came back. The fingerprints matched someone far closer to Emily than anyone could have imagined. The fingerprint results stunned investigators. They belonged to Rachel Carter, Emily's younger sister. The discovery sent shockwaves through the family and community. How could Emily's own sister be connected to the very plastic that concealed her remains? Detectives immediately brought Rachel in for questioning. At just 23, she looked fragile, her eyes red from sleepless nights. At first, she denied any involvement. She insisted she hadn't seen Emily the night she vanished. But confronted with the forensic evidence, Rachel broke down. Through sobs, she admitted she had been at the house that night. According to Rachel, Emily had called her after another explosive fight with Jason. She begged Rachel to come over, saying she was scared. When Rachel arrived, the argument was already raging. She claimed Jason shoved Emily, sending her crashing into the coffee table. Emily screamed, but when Rachel tried to intervene, Jason pushed her aside. Moments later, Rachel said Emily lay still, her body broken. Rachel insisted she hadn't killed her sister. She swore Jason had delivered the fatal blows. But she admitted she helped him afterward. Terrified, manipulated, and convinced Jason would hurt her too, Rachel claimed she followed his orders. Together, they wrapped Emily's body, carried her into the wall cavity Jason had been working on, and sealed it shut. The confession explained the second fingerprints, but it left detectives with a chilling picture. Jason as the violent aggressor, Rachel as the unwilling accomplice. Yet the question remained, was Rachel truly coerced, or was she more complicit than she admitted? In court, prosecutors painted Jason as a cold-blooded killer who not only ended Emily's life but also entombed her in the very walls of their shared home. They argued his motive was control, rage, and jealousy, unwilling to let Emily leave him. Witnesses described his temper, his threats, and his pattern of intimidation. Rachel, however, became the case's most controversial figure. The defense claimed she had acted under duress, paralyzed by fear and trauma. The prosecution countered that she could have gone to the police at any time, but instead chose silence for 2 years. After weeks of testimony, the jury reached its verdict. Jason Miller was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rachel Carter, however, received a reduced charge of accessory after the fact. She was sentenced to 5 years, with the court acknowledging the psychological grip Jason had on her. For Emily's family, the verdict brought mixed emotions. Justice was served against Jason, but the involvement of Rachel left deep scars that would never fully heal. A family already broken by tragedy now faced a lifetime of fractured trust. The house where Emily's body was discovered has since been abandoned, left to rot as a grim reminder of what happened within its walls. Neighbors say they still avoid walking past it at night. Some even swear they hear faint crying from inside. And while the case is officially closed, one haunting question lingers. If Rachel had spoken up sooner, could Emily's life have been saved? Jason Miller's behavior fits a classic profile seen in domestic violence cases. Outwardly, he projected charm and confidence. But behind closed doors, he displayed traits of coercive control, isolating Emily, dominating her decisions, and instilling fear. His temper, combined with a need for control, escalated into lethal violence when he realized Emily was preparing to leave. In psychological terms, this reflects what experts call the ownership mentality, where the abuser views the partner not as a person but as property. The idea of losing that property can trigger violent outbursts. His decision to hide Emily's body inside the walls of their own home demonstrates both calculated cruelty and denial. It wasn't just about concealing evidence. Psychologists argue that offenders who hide victims within familiar spaces are often exerting one final act of control, keeping the victim close even in death. It's an act of power, not just desperation. Rachel Carter's role, however, highlights another psychological phenomenon: coercive compliance. Studies show that individuals under extreme emotional pressure and fear may become paralyzed, following instructions even when they know they are wrong. Rachel claimed she was terrified, manipulated into silence. Experts describe this as a survival instinct, the brain prioritizing immediate safety over moral or legal consequences. Still, the ethical question remains: was Rachel a victim of manipulation, or did fear become a convenient shield for complicity? Psychologists say the truth often lies in shades of gray. Trauma can distort judgment, blur morality, and trap individuals in cycles of silence that outsiders struggle to understand. Emily Carter's story is one of love, betrayal, and unimaginable cruelty. A young nurse who dedicated her life to saving others was destroyed by the very person who claimed to love her. Her final resting place, the walls of her own home, is a chilling reminder of how far violence can go when ignored or hidden. Her case forces us to confront painful questions. How many warning signs go unnoticed? How many lives are lost because fear silences the truth? But one thing is certain: Emily's story deserves to be remembered. Not as a statistic, not as another crime scene, but as a warning, a lesson, and a call for vigilance in recognizing abuse before it turns fatal. If you were Emily's sister, what would you have done differently? Subscribe and watch our next case.